How's it going, y'all? Welcome back to another one of whatever this is. Maybe it's called brutal advice to myself as a real estate agent, or maybe it's called like thinking out loud. I don't know. There's probably something else called thinking out loud. But yeah, welcome back. This is the second one of these that I'll be releasing, the third that I did. And just want to start by saying, I'm going to try to say this every time. I do not care what brokerage you join. I don't care what brokerage you're at, and I almost certainly don't want you to be a part of my team. No offense intended there. Again, I'm growing my team in a way that is to be small but mighty. I only want killers on the team, and I think that will serve me, and being selective in that regard will benefit everybody on the team, myself included. Today, it's actually a Saturday, and I usually am trying to do these on Sunday mornings, and I still might do one tomorrow. Again, I think practicing this is going to be a pretty huge aspect of like getting decent at it, and I just kind of had this opening today. It's very chilly out, and I want to ride my motorcycle today, but it's pretty chilly, and I don't know that it would be. I'm like, let me get other stuff done, and I think tomorrow will be still chilly in Minnesota, but less chilly. How many times can I say chilly? And but I guess if I can get a little bit more done today, then that means that I can maybe more successfully go ride the bike tomorrow. And we ended the that's a thing that our dog trainer taught us for how to talk to our dog. It's actually pretty sick, and I wish somebody had kind of I wish I'd ever heard somebody mention that before, but we say ba, and we clap if we're trying to particularly make a point, and it's crazy how much it works for the Lasky boy. Yeah, I got a pup named Oscar. He's 8 months old. He rules, but he's a puppy, you know. And our upstairs neighbor got here, and in this office, she got here and she had a pup, and he was so excited, and I was like, well, okay, maybe I'm not going to be able to do this successfully because Oscar got pretty wound up. So we'll see. Place buddy. We'll see if this is at all listenable. But we ended the last episode of this, I guess the first episode of this, I was talking about the kind of plans for the motorcycle and how that fits into the brand. And I don't remember everything that I said about it, but I know that I kind of mentioned the very start of the plan, which is to sort of inject the motorcycle into the brand and be able to do videos that are somewhat similar to what I'm already doing in overall concept, which is we have a channel to the Twin Cities. It's all about it's about a lot of things, but one of the videos that we specialize in the most are like virtual tours of an area, right? So whether that's a suburb or a neighborhood, that's like what we specialize in. And we spend a lot of energy making each one of those videos. And that's kind of the idea of, that's how we differentiate ourselves from anybody else on YouTube, is by honestly just by putting more effort into each one of those videos. I'm going to get back to the motorcycle thing, but I think there's this interesting, let me type that down. There's this interesting concept in the marketing world and the business world that I've kind of recently encountered. I don't know if it's I bet it's not a new concept. I bet I'm just relatively new to hearing some of these things. It's the idea of building a moat around your business. And if you think about a moat, like what castles had back in the day, which was like a pond or like a river around a castle, with those like drawbridges. I can't believe I couldn't think of that. With the drawbridges. So then you can create a moat where getting into the castle, getting into that place is difficult to do because you built a moat around it. And so that's like how you can continue to build your castle / your community / in this case your business, is if you build a layer of protection around it by doing something that is difficult to accomplish otherwise. Or I think, I would say difficulty or some unique thing that you possess can be the moat. Where maybe looking a certain way as like a model would be, if a guy like looks really, really interesting, that's like a natural moat that is around that person, right? Because it's like, well, if we want somebody who looks like that guy, he's the guy, right? And so that's like the idea of the moat is like figuring out a way that you can start a business. So in my case, it's real estate. And what can I do to protect myself against somebody else stealing this from me, right? And just taking this over and doing it better. And for me in the video world, as it pertains to real estate, the moat was partly that I was early-ish to YouTube for real estate. But what's funny is I was not early to YouTube, right? Like it was 2020. YouTube's been out for way longer than that. And there are plenty of people on YouTube doing real estate related things before me. And I'm also not trying to pretend like I invented the concept that we do in our channel, because I didn't. I saw somebody else doing it and thought, I bet I could do that better and more cooler, and like with my own style, and make it feel like something that I would want to watch, and make it actually something that I would think would be helpful. So the idea of the moat, it as it pertained to the real estate videos, to me the moat was just that I was just willing to outwork everybody else who was doing it, especially when I first started. I wanted to make more content consistently, make longer videos, make more in-depth videos with more B-roll, and also I like literally go out and like in a vlog style, I like walk around with a camera and am immersed in these areas. And to me, that was like one of the biggest things that separated me from almost everybody else. It's and some of that is that it's very uncomfortable to vlog in public, especially in some of these places. That's kind of the funniest thing that I realized about it, is that vlogging in some of these like third ring suburbs, people are like, what the hell are you doing, right? Or shooting B-roll in like a suburban strip mall. People are like, why does that guy have a camera out, right? And it's like, honestly, fair question. Like, if I saw somebody else filming a Petco, I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, why is that guy driving by this Petco, filming the front of a Petco? And it's like, for us, it's like, well, because we're just trying to show like what the commercial spaces look like, what commercial spaces are actually available, etc., etc. But so it makes perfect sense for us. And if we told people, they'd probably go, oh, okay, weird, but okay. And so again, the moat that we started with was just creating a very like kind of hip, I suppose, package for the virtual tour style videos, and for even like a pros and cons video. I think that was the first one I did with like my proper editor that was kind of focused on that style of thing, which was I talked about pros and cons of living in the Twin Cities, but I went all over the place. And when I was talking about taxes, I was in front of the state capitol, for example. Oscar's chewing on something, but better than whining at the door. So I appreciate you watching. If you're here hanging out, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you dealing with kind of the quirks, especially this early on. And for the record, I'm not expecting anybody to watch these. So if I'm talking to nobody right now, it's cool. I'm going to keep getting better at this, and there will be more to talk about. So there will be more people, and there will be more fleshed out ideas, but this is me fleshing out the idea. I'm also very curious. I would love for you to leave a comment if you're watching. Do you say flesh out or flush out? I think it's you flesh out. Flesh, F-L-E-S-H. And I've heard people debate this on other podcasts, and I've always thought it was flesh, And now I doubt it. I question it every single time because I don't remember who won that argument. So back to the moat, the idea of the moat. Again, it was working harder, being more immersive, and putting out more content than anybody else. That was the moat that I was creating. And to some degree, looking the way that I look, right? I would say even then, maybe even more, I was a little more like blue collar, but like vaguely, slightly more alternative than I am now in like overall appearance. Hi buddy, you being a good boy. And now I just like different stuff, it's 5 years later. I just like the looks of different things, and frankly I can afford things that I couldn't afford before. So I think that has slowly changed over time, but I still have like long hair and tattoos and a beard and whatever. You can tell that my ears used to have big earrings in them. But yeah, so I tend to think everybody, when it comes to content, you can make a moat to some degree just by being super true to who you are and working really hard to get your natural personality out there. I want to say authentic. I think I've heard way too many people who I don't think come across as authentic talk about like authenticity, man. It's all about authenticity. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So then why aren't you authentic? Yeah, there's a few people come to mind. I practice very staunch not talking negatively about anybody. I try super, super hard to do that. Especially people who are actually doing well in a business or in an industry, musically, or like artists or whatever. When people are killing it, I don't look at them and go, what the, that's fine, that's stupid. I look at them and go, good for them, And even if maybe there is a but, maybe there's a good for them, but like that is not for me. And I don't think that's hating. I think that's kind of, what do they say? Game respects game, right? I think there's a little bit of like, okay, that's one way to do it. It's not the way I would do it, but it is a way to do it. And so anyway, the reason that I say that is because there's kind of the idea that I think anybody can build a moat around their natural personality, their real self. If they are willing to put their real self out there a bunch, then I think it's going to be very, very difficult for anybody to be you exactly. And I also think it's really hard to be very natural. I have been making video content realistically for 5 years at like a high level. I was doing stuff before that, a little bit like some vlogging stuff, and I made like 30 of those videos related to music, maybe 40, something like that. And that was just a really good like foray into the process. But I can think back to my very first videos on this in real estate, and man, just not quite as authentic, or maybe they were very authentic, but they didn't feel natural. They were authentic because I was like not that good on camera, and I wasn't quite comfortable on camera, and I was, kind of presenting a little bit, or I don't know, maybe it was a lot, I don't know. But this podcast in particular is a practice in like the most genuine version of myself on camera, but like, yeah, I'm not even trying, but I'm trying to create a world, this world that we're watching, or that you're watching right now, that I'm in, trying to create this world that allows me to just be completely, like 100% the person that I am, just talking about the stuff that I'm talking about. Because yeah, I could be talking about Formula One, and then I'm a slightly different guy, and yeah. There's also, on the same note, if you're watching this, if there's any part of you thinking like, well, how do I be authentic, right? Which is not a very good sentence, if that's what you were thinking. How do I be authentic? But for one, it just takes practice, right? And I think it is also okay that there are multiple versions of you. There are anyway, right? So the you on camera can be a different version of you. And it probably should be. Frankly, there's a version of me that like doesn't want to talk at all, right? There are many times during a week where I'm like, okay, I'm burnt and I'm like recuperating perhaps, and that means not talking, you know. And so again, just because you're like, well, I play video games and I don't like to, and I'm antisocial, doesn't mean that there can't be a part of you that is a bit more parasocial, which is like kind of what a video is. That's kind of the beauty of a video, is that you can almost practice being social with nobody else in the room, maybe your dog. But yeah, it's really fascinating that like the way that you can kind of create this new part of yourself. And also, like, if you're new to real estate and you or business or whatever, and you just really want to try to grow that business, you're gonna have to make a new version of yourself. There's gonna have to be this other part of yourself that has to appear. And some of y'all just are not ready for that. Some of y'all, like, you haven't had it, I don't know, bad enough, or you haven't quite gotten to the place where like the little, like, that other part of you that's like this big inside of your brain, it has to go, hey, wait a second, I need to get to work now. And yeah, that's just the reality. And you don't know what it's gonna take, right? And you haven't tried enough things and failed to try this and succeed. And that's an unfortunate reality. But who I'm really talking to in any of these videos, and who I'm really hoping to like connect with in some way, are the people who really are like, okay, it's time for me to figure this out. I will figure this out at all costs, because that's a really powerful place to be in life. And that's like, but you need, when you're that person and you're like kind of bootstrapping a real estate career, a real estate business, because it's a business, it's not a career, it's a business. When you're bootstrapping that, and you like, maybe you're coming from a world that like didn't really prepare you for this, you're going to need other people in the room who are giving you nuggets of advice. And that's probably going to be on YouTube and on podcasts or audiobooks or books, I suppose, if you read, which I do not very well. But for the people who are trying to be in a room with people who are doing the thing that they want to do, the beauty of the idea of the room is that the internet is a big old room, right? And you can go into rooms that suck and that will drag you down, which is probably most of the internet, or you can go into rooms that like pick you up and really push you forward, right? Because you can change your perspective on what's possible through things like this, and like books, and through podcasts, interview podcasts, and things like that. And if I can contribute to that concept in some way, that's like my number one goal, is to contribute to one person and change their life. And I don't know who that is, right? But like, to just be putting this out there and somebody to connect with it and go, that's gonna flip the switch. There's this dude named Peter Lorimer, yeah. He's a real estate agent. I listened to a podcast with him. He was like a DJ. He's an English bloke, but he lives in California, and he was like a DJ and like, you know, did that for a super long time. And then he eventually got into real estate, and his biggest thing was be yourself. And people, you will find the people who appreciate you being yourself. So that's kind of the idea of the moat, right? And if you are unique or interesting, which you all are for the record, but if you can find the things that are unique about you as it pertains to the business that you're in, then I would say lean into those, or just certainly don't hide that. This guitar, things like that, that's not an accident. That's a thing that people recognize that as like, oh, that's unique, right? That is, no, I don't see that necessarily associated with real estate agents all the time. I see other things associated with real estate agents all the time, and that's not necessarily it. And even just like the aesthetic in this room is, which by the way, this room exists on my main real estate channel. So this is client-facing channels are shot in this space as well. And again, it's not on accident that it looks how it looks. This is the kind of like vibe I want to put out. And this is the kind of thing that I think there are people who will connect with. And it's probably, if we move out of this place, we might move into a smaller office, or we might move into, might almost go office-less. It'll be interesting to see what we might do there. But if we go into a new space, I think I'll change the look. I've had black wall and kind of, I think it'll still be kind of a little bit moody like what this is, a little bit, trying to be cinematic, but I think I'll just change it up a little bit to just feel a bit fresher and a bit more like the speed of what I'm trying to put out there now, right? Again, 5 years later. In 2021, I think, I got my first office, which was really just like an art space in like an art studio. I think it was only like $450 a month, which felt a little scary because I was paying rent, and I hadn't even been doing real estate for a year yet, I don't think. But I knew that I needed a place to go that I could film and just show up and boom, I'm filming, okay, now I'm done, and I leave, and the space stays exactly the same, and that's sweet. So there's a part of me that's like, I might go back to something like that. I might go back to a much smaller office than what we have, specifically with the goal in mind of being small, but just being able to show up, make stuff, and split. Our office right now is almost too good of a hang. It's kind of crazy to say, but it's almost just a place that like makes me want to relax, and that's not necessarily what it should be, in my opinion. I think while it is cool that you can relax here, I think it's almost like too bright and airy and like just too nice of a place. But I don't know. I have conflicting thoughts on that, because I also think like, well, this is my life. And every day that I live, that is my life. And if I can choose how my life is lived and where it's lived and what it looks like and feels like, then I'm going to make it nice. And I'm going to make everywhere that I go nice. And because, that's the stuff that you can't get back. I can't get yesterday back. I can't get that I got to, go to the gym, that I got to hang out here and, work on stuff with Paul. Like, I can't get that day back, but it was a nice day. It's a very nice day. And, it was productive, and we spent it in a nice place. So anyway, that's my thought on that. Back to the moat concept, and specifically the motorcycle, no pun intended, pun fully intended there. Apologies for that. I was dumb as hell. The motorcycle idea, I'm going to try to talk about this for like the rest of this, because I think even if you're like, well, I don't ride motorcycles, like what the hell, why would I care about that? Stick with me. If you keep in mind the concept of the moat, I think the motorcycle, which by the way, Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, it's in black pearl, but I'm going to paint the gas tank. I have cool stuff coming. I'm excited. It's a beautiful bike. And I got it on Thursday. It was so nice to ride. It was like, I've only ever had either really, my first motorcycle, I was 20, and I was working at Perkins. It was like my first serving job, really. I worked in restaurants before that, but never serving. And I got this motorcycle. I think it was a Suzuki GS 750. If you're into bikes, maybe you know what that is. Maybe that's not even what it was, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. Which is funny. I think I saw one more recently, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a sick bike. But mine had a windjammer on it. And if you know what a windjammer is, they are ugly as shit. They are like not just a windshield, which I don't really love a windshield, but the Windjammer has like a body on it, and it was, oh man, it was ugly. But it's just what the bike had, and I didn't know how to work on bikes or anything like that. So I was like, well, this just is what the bike is, you know? Anyway, that bike was crazy. It would kill, you know, it would stall, clutch in, even in neutral. Just if you were going like 45, you pull up to a stoplight, you pull, you know, clutch in or in neutral, just the revs coming down, boom, dead. And I had no idea how to fix it. And back then the internet wasn't nearly as robust as it is now. So that was probably 2006. So you couldn't just go to YouTube and be like, my motorcycle is stalling. Yeah, I don't think you could, right? I don't think YouTube was around. Maybe you could go to a forum, but that wasn't what I was doing at the time. I was just dealing with that, and you'd start it, you know, and then you'd have to keep it revved a little bit. Yeah, crazy. I also had to, every single time I started that for the last like 6 months of owning it, every single time I started it, I had to take the seat off, take the air filter cover off. So you take the seat off, which takes a key, take the seat cover off, or take the filter cover off, which took a Phillips screwdriver, and then I had to put in starter fluid, I think, right? And then put it back on, start it, because it like wasn't strong enough to just start. So I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, I still don't know. I would have to look that up now, you know, like what can I do to fix that? Maybe it was a spark plug, maybe it was something way different than that. But anyway, had this old bike. Then after that, and before that, I had like enduros. Like my dad bought like these like little, I want to say there's like a Yamaha like 70cc enduro that I started on, which is actually like kind of sweet in retrospect, and fun to ride and whatever. And it taught me, you know, clutch and taught me all that stuff really, really well. But then I went a really long time, like only ever like riding my dad's bike, which he got probably in like 2010-ish or something like that. He got a couple bikes, and so only if I went up to his house would I ever drive them, or ride them rather. And he had a he had a Kawasaki Vulcan, which is a huge 1600cc bike. Again, if you're not into bikes, I apologize. If you are, you're probably like, okay, that makes sense. 1600cc is a big bike. It's among the biggest bikes that I've ever known anybody to own. Yeah, I'm sure there are bigger, but it had, you know, saddlebags and like a trunk thing on it, and just a windshield. It was very wide, and the tank was huge. Just everything about it was so big. And I still have it. We inherited that when my father passed, my siblings and I, and we still have it. I started riding it. You know, my siblings and I still technically have it, and started riding it, and it's just so hard in the city. It's just like, I don't know about hard. It's just so much, you know? It's like having like one of those huge old like Buick cars where they're just massive, and you're like, they're boats, right? You're just like, this thing is huge. I imagine it's like the equivalent of like driving like if your main vehicle was like a U-Haul truck. Like, yeah, I mean, I can get around, but it's like more annoying than it needs to be. And so anyway, flash forward to now. I got this Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. It's cool. It's much smaller and much more nimble. It's also probably slower technically, but it's just so slick and relatively affordable and customizable, which is one of my favorite parts about it, is that there's tons and tons of like custom fabrication companies on it. I know this is not a motorcycle podcast, for the record, but the reason that I bring up the custom is because I will be able to make my motorcycle look a certain way, and the goal is for it to look, this sounds cheesy, but like vaguely iconic. I know it. I do understand that sounds very cheesy, but like iconic in the way that it's like very recognizable, and not in like LeBron James, Michael Jordan iconic, right? Like not like that. Just like, this is clearly mine, and if anybody watches the channel, they would go, I recognize that, you know, because it's custom enough, and there's like not that many people who would have something like that. So that's kind of the idea behind why I chose that bike, and as far as what I intend to do with it, this is really where I think the thinking out loud part of this podcast comes into play. So again, this is one of those ideas that I finally said out loud, really, to my fiance, to Paul, to this podcast, and I'm still working through exactly what it is. But there's the idea of a real estate channel that is like based around the motorcycle and riding the motorcycle. And so again, we do virtual tours on our main channel. But to me, this would be a way to ride a motorcycle through beautiful areas, specifically like luxury style areas, obviously not gated. There's not that many gated communities in Minnesota, which is nice. And to ride through these luxury areas and provide commentary on them, right? So to be riding and to be speaking at the same time, which is a kind of a whole interesting, I had to go down a crazy rabbit hole of what are called moto vlogs, where motorcycle vloggers basically, and there's a lot of like POV style riding where you have the microphone either on your helmet, on your oh, that's funny, on the top of your helmet, on like the chin part of your helmet. There's like chest straps that people wear. There's this like neck one that it's like almost like a necklace, but then the GoPro kind of like chills there. I don't know. And then there's obviously stuff that mounts on your motorcycle, and you have all sorts of different potential shots, and like 360 cameras, of course, as well, are very much a part of that to kind of make it feel fast and exciting. And I don't know that I'm really I don't know that I care about making it fast and exciting. And in fact, that's one of those things where I'm like, I don't think that should be the brand, that I'm like a daredevil. First of all, I'm not, okay? The Royal Enfield, one of the biggest reasons I like that is because it feels safe. It feels so manageable and like it's never going to get out of control, knock on wood. It feels solid and not like, oh, I could really, if I just move my wrist a little too much that I'll like, wheelie. I'm too big. I'm never going to wheelie that bike, I'm quite sure. And so there's kind of all that stuff, right? Like I'm getting back to like the brand of it, right? So I don't think it's going to be daredevil-y, right? The goal is for not for it to look like I'm riding so fast and like I'm such a good rider, because I don't think that's what the audience would want. And again, it's not who I am, but I'm trying to wrap my head around this part of let's call it the luxury bracket of home buyers who also would find a moto vlog compelling. And it's pretty interesting. I'm like, there's a big part of me that's like, is that too small of a world? Should I just be more broadly moto vlog? And maybe, but I think for now, my goal will not be to outwardly say, or the brand I don't think will intend to be like, we are a luxury real estate team or a luxury division of a real estate team. Although that sounds fairly concise, and there's a part of me that finds that very interesting, to say like, as I'm on a motorcycle, to say this is what you're watching is for a luxury division of a real estate team, and it's based around motorcycle rides. To my knowledge, nobody has done this. So there, I don't think there's a blueprint at all, but that's a big part of, to me, that's the moat. That's the thing where I go, man, that'd be kind of sick. There's nobody doing this. So if I can make it watchable, and not just watchable, but like very good, and make it helpful to somebody who is looking for these things, I think there's a cross section of the market who they wouldn't necessarily have to be motorcycle riders to appreciate that. Maybe they had a parent, maybe their dad was, or something like that. maybe their kid thinks it's cool, and they go, and their kid says, hey, mom and dad, look at this. This dude's cool. You know, that's all I want is for people to think I'm cool. But no, that's not really all I want. I want to be helpful, and I want to continue to dial in ways to stand out and be unique. And again, I think the moat, the packaging of a real estate video that is based around a motorcycle, and an overall aesthetic too. If Google, actually, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't totally understand it, go to Pinterest and type in Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 custom, and you'll probably see these pretty sick looking bikes that are fairly minimalistic, but they have like brown leather seats, and they look more, first of all, they look more expensive than they are, but they look like unique, and maybe that's a little bit of and they look classic, because they are what are called modern classic bikes, where I'm literally bought a 2024 Royal Enfield, but it is based off of like a bike from the 60s, and it looks pretty damn similar. And there are people who, to the untrained eye, it looks like a bike from the 60s, and people will say like, what year is this? And you'll go 2024. I'll go 2024, and they'll say, what? You know, and there's a couple things on it that would give that away: fuel injection and analog brakes. But the look of it is, to me, it's timeless. And I've been really, really interested in things that are timeless, and like that, like richness of design, whether that be in a space like this, whether that be in fashion and in clothing and things like that, vehicles, motorcycles, which is a vehicle, I understand that, houses, just like, yeah, architecture in general, cities, like there's, and maybe this is because of the internet and the AIification of blah, 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 but there's like this pull to me to find these like heritage things that will be around for a very long time, that are made extremely well, that are just so interesting and exciting. And I think that there's a big part of the population who also like longs for that. And I also think there's a part of the, specifically like the luxury market, who they're interested in that as well. And bespoke, right? That's kind of like the overall concept of those things. There are people who, obviously it's a small section of the population, which is partly why I'm like, is this a mistake? But, you know, am I going after like the rarest of the rare? And maybe, you know, maybe I am. But the best part about this is that it's also a reason to ride the motorcycle. And like, that's also super fun. You know, like there's no part of me that I think will regret doing these videos on this motorcycle that may or may not work, right? It's an excuse to go to these beautiful areas, a lot of which I imagine will be kind of on the outskirts of the metropolitan area, and I'll be kind of looking for these beautiful roads and beautiful places to ride in general, and yeah, and then just being able to talk about those places and what they look like, and you know, how they feel, and managing to provide education and entertainment in this very interesting package, which is, again, a real estate video, a real estate agent's video, so content on a motorcycle that is talking about stuff that where you just cannot find that package. And I don't know what the channel's going to be called. I've been in like riffing a little bit. I'm like, there's certain things that for a while I was thinking, do I have the word luxury in there? Do I specifically call that out? But I'm actually going to type some of this down because I need to. Bespoke is a word that I just said that I think could somehow manage to be in that. Heritage, there's kind of like the idea of a heritage brand that I think is compelling. And yeah, there's just like a bit about like, how do you get the idea across that like you're trying to show the viewer like quality, right? Like just this like craftsmanship and quality. I don't think either of those words will be in the name of the channel or the brand. I don't think it will just be my name. And partly, again, if you're still watching this, what's up? Thank you for hanging out. I learned in the early days of real estate that just calling something like Jesse Lynch Realty, which is literally what I called it, it limited my ability to scale. It limited my ability to say, like, at least I perceived it that way. Because it's funny, I say that and I'm like, well, there are huge brokerages and teams that are just based off of one person's name, but I just don't find it, I don't think it's really the move at this point. So and a lot of that is because if you're marketing and you're saying like it's me, this marketing is around me, then when it comes to helping a client, I have to be the one to help them all along the way, which again, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, wow, you have to help a client. My goal is to not be in production. My goal is to not be helping, showing every house for everybody. My goal is to market and to train killers, okay? To train agents who are unbelievable at what they do. And again, have a small but mighty team of people who are in the upper echelon of what this industry is. And in order to do that, I believe I have to keep it small. So, but in order to do that, I also cannot be showing every house to people. So, because of the time, right? I need to be able to focus on making stuff like this and helping the agents, improve and grow and navigate what are complicated situations. So yeah, again, this is the thinking out loud portion, talking through what might this be called. And yeah, I might just have to pull out a thesaurus and, rare is a word that rarity. Yeah, I think those are, maybe I try to go down that path of like, because, if I said like Twin Cities luxury rides or something like that, that literally just sounds like a car channel. That sounds like, frankly, it sounds like something nobody would really want to watch. But it sounds like you'd be looking at like Ferraris and stuff, and that's just not what it would be. The goal is for it to be real estate focused and potentially to be able to have things that are not completely surrounding the motorcycle, right? But to sort of future-proof against that being like the content to future-proof against needing or absolutely requiring a video to have me riding a motorcycle, and to rather like create the spirit of what the channel is about, which could be a bit about like talking with like other people who are doing in the Twin Cities, who are really honing their craft, so to say, and maybe like wrapping that into the motorcycle world. And again, it's not necessarily that like I need my end client would be somebody who is one of those people, right? Like I'm not trying to attract craftsmen to work with me. I'm not my ideal client is not inherently like a leather worker, right? That'd be cool, don't get me wrong. It's more of like the person who, it doesn't really matter what they do. I'll have to dial that in, like who specifically am I speaking to, because that's something I believe in. That's something I've talked a lot about on this channel, is finding an avatar and speaking to that one person over and over again and having them in mind as you make content and create, which again is just kind of me in this situation. Somebody who's like really just be getting more and more interested in like in that kind of thing, like going like, damn, like. And part of it is because I could never afford some of that stuff, right? Like, I could never afford to just go buy a motorcycle. It's not even that expensive, but to just be like, I'm gonna do that. Before it would have had to take so much planning, and I would have had to justify it so much. And maybe I'm still doing that a little bit. Here I am talking on a podcast about how useful it's going to be. But I believe, and this is something that I'm wondering, do I say this in the channel, or is this just like the spirit of the channel? But like, I believe that there are a lot more people who have achieved a level of success / financial security, etc., who would like to work with a real estate agent who also worked their way up and specifically are down to earth and not overly polished, but also have a very refined taste, which maybe refined is maybe not exactly how I would describe myself. I don't think I'm refined, but I'm very thoughtful in my taste and in how I design spaces and how I like things. There are things that I'm drawn to, and I think I have like a defined sort of grouping of interests that are unique, but also not like completely out there. I think they are tasteful and yeah. So there's a thing that I say a lot, just like in regular life, often when looking at, more expensive houses, maybe houses, let's say $1 million or somewhere around there. And when clients say like, why would you do that? Right? There's some really ugly creative decision that happens in so many houses. And I usually say like, you can't buy taste. I think you can buy, you can pay for people to help you make a place look tasteful, right? So you can, if you have enough money, you can have a realtor or you could have a builder or both who can work with a designer, who can pull your not very well thought through vision, and they can pull it together to create a vision. And I guess a lot of what I'm trying to appeal to people with that channel, with the new channel that doesn't exist yet. My goal is to try to appeal to people who have a similar taste, right? I would say they have good taste, and they look at a lot of other things and go, it's like whack, right? It's stale, it's uninteresting, or whatever. And what I want to do is to be able to stand out and have people who are, again, probably have come from less and have worked their way up, and they identify more with me than they do with somebody who is rich, right? And was born rich and has a typical old money outlook on things. Because, not to say that that's what every realtor is, for the record, I think there are some luxury style agents who are just super, super down to earth people. So that is not my intention to say that that's not the case, but I think those people would agree and say that like the standard, the most common, look is very typical, and there's like an outfit that people wear, a uniform that people wear to sort of feel like or to present that they are a luxury agent. And my goal is to say, no, that's not true. You can be luxury, you can have impeccable taste and look very, very different than that. And last thought, and then I actually have to get going, but I think, so stick around, don't leave yet, because I think this will be helpful. There's a few people that I've been listening to lately and watching videos on YouTube. So you obviously could go watch more of my videos, but if you want to spread your wings and go, dabble into a part of the internet that is not typically going to be on most realtors' feeds, there's a sort of part of the marketing world, and there's one guy named Orin John, but his channel is called Orin Meets World. And again, if you're here, I think you'll like them, right? If you're watching this long into this, I think you will like this guy. And I think if I can sort of like turn you on to Orin John, aka Orin Meets World, I think it would be helpful for you to watch, a chunk of his videos. And a lot of it is because he's in like the fashion world, and he talks about marketing in a way that is so different than how real estate marketing people talk, because he's literally talking about a different world. But the concept of the moat, the concept of the different packaging is literally from him. So I'm sure other people have said it before him, but that got my brain thinking about like, oh, that's kind of accidentally why some of my brand has just like has worked, is because the packaging is different, aka me, aka the videos, the vibe overall, the color grading, those things are different. But those things generally came from that world, because he's talking about how do you make a product look different? And he says you can have, the packaging can be different, right? So why does one suntan lotion do better than another, or sunscreen, I suppose is probably what it's called now. Why does one sunscreen or SPF do better than another? And it might be the same exact stuff, but it's a different package. Why does one clothing brand do different? And some of it is because it's packaged in a different, branding is different, where like my fiance has some stuff from a thing called Moat, the label. It's all cotton, right? And they specifically are like, we are not polyester. We do not have a bunch of plastics in our clothes. And it looks similar to the things that you would expect to see in like those other brands like Lululemon or something like that, but it's cotton, right? It's not polyester. And so they're this alternative, and they've packaged themselves. Literally their packages look differently, but just like how they're speaking about it and how they're presenting themselves is in a different package. And then last one, maybe I'll talk about this more in a bit, is a dude named Caleb Ralston. And Caleb was basically like content supervisor, like head of content for first Gary Vee, then Alex Hormozy, and now he's basically out on his own, and he has a marketing company called Ralston, and he's super clever, and he will echo a lot of these ideas as well. And again, the content game is super important. He's all about content. And so he's like, how do you make content that stands out? How do you do this differently? And that's obviously what I believe in. That's what I preach, if you will, is content and being different in content. And so check out Caleb Ralston as well. He literally has a 6-hour brand course, which, by the way, making a video 6 hour long is a brilliant package to put it in and go, who else is giving you 6 hours on this concept? 6 hours that are well organized to get you through. That's like almost a college course in content. So check out Caleb Ralston, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.